Justice is broken, and we all know it. Let's be honest. Justice is a loaded word today. We talk about it in the courts, on social media, in church debates, and even in our own heads. Yet somehow, the more we talk about justice, the more confused we seem. Why? Because we've traded the truth of God's justice for the opinions of people. And here's the kicker. Most of us are judging situations, people, and even ourselves based on the wrong kind of justice. Proverbs chapter 18 verse 5 says, "It is not good to be partial to the wicked or to deprive the righteous of justice." At first glance, it seems straightforward. But when we strip it down to its core and rebuild using Jesus as the cornerstone, we find something much deeper, something that shakes our assumptions and points us to a radical way of living and judging. Let's be honest, justice is a loaded word today. We talk about it in the courts, on social media, in church debates, and even in our own heads. Yet somehow the more we talk about justice, the more confused we seem. Why? Because we've traded the truth of God's justice for the opinions of people. And here's the kicker. Most of us are judging situations, people, and even ourselves based on the wrong kind of justice. Proverbs chapter 18 verse 5 says, "It is not good to be partial to the wicked, or to deprive the righteous of justice." At first glance, it seems straightforward. But when we strip it down to its core and rebuild, using Jesus as the cornerstone, we find something much deeper, something that shakes our assumptions and points us to a radical way of living and judging, a world where right feels wrong. You see it all the time. The guilty go free. The innocent get smeared. The loudest voices often win, not the truest ones. In every corner of life, government, relationships, churches, we see injustice taking the stage. That's the word Proverbs chapter 18 verse 5 speaks to. A world where favoring the wicked and robbing the righteous isn't just possible, it's common. And sometimes we even applaud it. But the proverb says it is not good. Not good? That sounds soft. But in Hebrew, not good is the same phrase used in Genesis when God said, "It is not good for man to be alone." In other words, it describes something fundamentally against the grain of God's design. So when we get justice wrong, we're not just making bad decisions. We're breaking the design of heaven. A tapestry of twisted words. Proverbs chapter 18 is rich with themes about the power of speech, bias, and discernment. Verse 4. Words can either be deep waters or life-giving streams. Verse 8. Gossip is delicious going down, but deadly inside. Verse 13. Speaking before listening is foolish. Verse 17. The first story always sounds right until someone asks questions. Now insert verse 5. It is not good to be partial to the wicked or to deprive the righteous of justice. It's like Solomon is drawing a web. When words twist truth, justice gets strangled. This isn't just about courtroom judges. It's about you and me. When we believe gossip without hearing both sides, we show partiality. When we favor someone based on status or personality, we rob the righteous. When we let fear or comfort steer our judgments, we stop judging like Jesus. The questions: what is justice really? We need to pause and ask some uncomfortable questions. What does it mean to judge with justice like Jesus? Why is partiality so dangerous? Are we as impartial as we think we are? How does this verse ultimately point us to Christ? Let's dig in. A. The answers, first principles, and the way of Christ. Let's strip everything down to bedrock. First, God is just. Justice isn't a human invention. It comes from the character of God. For the Lord is righteous. He loves justice. That's from Psalm 11, verse 7. When we talk about justice, We're talking about God's nature. Any distortion of it isn't just bad policy, it's rebellion. Second, justice must be impartial. To be partial is to lift the face. That's the Hebrew phrase, nasa panim, a sign of favoritism. But God says, you shall not pervert justice. You shall not show partiality. That's Deuteronomy 16:19. Justice isn't justice if it tilts. Third, righteousness and wickedness are defined by alignment with God. We often think of these as moral terms, but in the Hebrew mindset, they're actually relational. The righteous walk in covenant with God. The wicked resist his rule. So, to favor the wicked is to strengthen rebellion, and to deny the righteous is to oppose God. A fresh perspective. Favoritism is the first idolatry. Here's where it gets interesting. Think back to Eden. The serpent tempted Eve with a lie that favored her desire over God's command. He judged the situation with partiality, leaning into rebellion and ignoring righteousness. The result, death, separation, chaos. Favoritism, then, is the root of idolatry. It puts our preference above God's truth. And every time we choose comfort over truth, believe one side of a story because it's easier, or ignore injustice because it's inconvenient, we repeat the pattern of Eden. Proverbs chapter 18 verse 5 isn't just a verse about law, it's a mirror held up to our hearts. So what does this have to do with Christ? First, Jesus is the righteous judge. Jesus doesn't judge by appearances or bias. Isaiah says he will not judge by what he sees with his eyes or decide by what he hears with his ears. But with righteousness, he will judge the needy. He doesn't favor the rich. He doesn't bow to the powerful. He embodies perfect justice. Second, Jesus was the righteous one deprived of justice. In a dark twist, Jesus lived Proverbs 18:5. He was righteous but robbed of justice, while Barabbas, a criminal, was favored. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. Third, Jesus turns injustice into redemption. Through his unjust trial, he accomplished divine justice. God presented Christ as a sacrifice of atonement, so as to be just and the one who justifies. Jesus doesn't excuse the wicked by favoritism. He takes their punishment. And he doesn't rob the righteous. He clothes them with his own righteousness. This is the gospel. Justice satisfied, mercy extended. Two practical applications. First, let the cross shape your judgments. Every day you judge, you decide what to believe, who to support, what to say. Instead of relying on your emotions or loyalties, ask, am I judging this situation the way Jesus would? Am I letting comfort override truth? Be cruciform in your thinking. Let the cross be the filter for every opinion. Second, stand up for the righteous, even when it's unpopular. Whether it's a friend being slandered or a biblical truth under fire, don't stay silent. Speaking up for the righteous isn't optional, it's godly. Open your mouth, judge righteously. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. Don't just avoid partiality. Actively defend justice, even when it costs you. Final word, justice is the canvas. Jesus is the artist. Proverbs 18:5 is more than wisdom literature. It's a lens into the gospel. It shows us what breaks God's heart, what restores his order, and how much he values righteousness. In a world where truth is twisted and justice is blurred, Jesus stands firm. He's not just a teacher of justice, he is justice incarnate. Let him shape your heart, your judgments, and your life. Not sure where to start? Take the spiritual growth quiz and discover where you stand and how to grow. Click here.